20 books on my May TBR, and you know more than I do. I'm not going to read that many. Why do I do this? Hello, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Becca and today I have my May TBR. So we're going back to the original way of me doing my TBR, where I structure it based on my 2018 goals, as well as the books for my goals. Obviously, as you will all know, May is a really good month for new releases, and also my birthday is at the beginning of May, so there are a few books that I will be acquiring in May that I know that I'm going to be reading in May, and then there's a couple of series that I'm ongoing with that I would like to read at least one more book of in the month of May. Now that I've got that over with, let's just get into it. So as you all probably know by now, my main goal of 2018 is to read the oldest books on my to read shelf on Goodreads. You may also know that I did decide to DNF the House of Night series, and so the next thing on my Goodreads to be read shelf is the Wolves of Merseyfall series by Maggie Stiefvater. I believe that Shiver is the first book, and I don't actually know a lot about these aside from they're about werewolves. As you may be able to tell from me DNFing the House of Night series, I am going off paranormal fiction a little bit now. However, Maggie Stiefvater is a very well-loved writer. I do like to read the entire works of authors that I like. Obviously, I don't know if I like Maggie Stiefvater yet, but I do have the first book in the Raven Cycle. The Raven Cycle, is that what it's called? And I think if I did read the Raven Boys first, then come back to this, I definitely wouldn't like this. So I am glad that this gives me the excuse to read this before that, because if I do like the Raven Boys, then I would want to read her entire work, so it's kind of better that I read this now. As I usually do with my goals, by putting this on my TBR, that means that the whole series is in. However, because I have so many books on my May TBR, because I am ridiculous, I don't expect to read more than the first book in this series in May. My next goal is to read books from my shelves that I'm thinking I might unhaul, and this month for that goal I have selected What I Was by Meg Rosoff. I don't really know what this is. I have read How I Live Now by Meg Rosoff, and while I did like it, it did make me feel very uncomfortable because of the topics of the United Kingdom being invaded by terrorists, which is obviously a threat that is very real right now in the current political climate. I want to give Meg Rosoff another try. I don't know what this is about, and I did read the synopsis, however that doesn't tell me much. It says something about a girl who's been kicked out of various schools and she goes to another one and she meets a boy. However, based on what I know of How I Live Now, I don't think that it's going to be a romance at all. If anything, I think it's going to be more like E. Lockhart's We Were Liars. However, I don't really know. I did add this one to my TBR for this month because it's so short, because I have a lot of books on my TBR, and with all the new releases, I'm obviously going to be prioritising those. So I wanted shorter books that I can just sort of read really quickly. Now on to my rereads. The first one I'm going to be rereading is Crown of Midnight by Sarah J Maas. As you will know, I am hosting a read-along of the Throne of Glass series, and I have fallen behind on my own readathon, and the reason for this is that one of my library books is due back and it has a hold on it, so I can't renew it. So I've had to sort of push that into the slot that I would have read Crown of Midnight in. So I need to read this one, and then the actual book for May for the read-along is Heir of Fire. So I need to read both of these. Obviously, as I'm sure you know, because you all know me at least a little bit by now, there will be another Sarah J Maas book on my May TBR, which I will come to later. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and read Crown of Midnight right at the beginning of the month, Heir of Fire towards the end, and then the other one in the middle to spread it out a bit, because while I do love Sarah J Maas a lot, 3 books in 1 month, especially really thick ones, which these two are, is a lot. I will also be rereading King's Cage, another book I didn't get to in May because I was finishing up Glass Sword. This is the 3rd book in the Red Queen series, and as you may have guessed, the 4th one is out in May. So I plan to read this sometime between the 5th and the 15th of May. As you may have noticed, I have it all scheduled out because I want to get to these new releases as soon as possible. So I'm trying to fit certain books in before that so that I can sort of start all my new releases on time. I'm sure you all know what Red Queen is about now, so I won't go into too many details, but it is about a society that's split between red and silver bloods. Silver are the elite, red are the normal run-of-the-mill citizens, and they are oppressed. And it's about one of the red girls striking back against the silver elite. Obviously can't tell you what the 3rd book specifically is about, but I am very excited for the last book to be released, and so I will be reading the 3rd one. May is also a month for one of Ryan's recommendations, and you probably all know that every other month my best friend Ryan recommends me a book to read, and thankfully he's recommended a standalone for this month, and this is Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. I did kind of want to see the film, but like life has been crazy busy and kind of shit, so I haven't really had time to go to the cinema. I am excited to read the book because I would rather have read the book first anyway, and then I guess I'll just get the film on Blu-ray when it's released. But I believe this is about sort of, I'm not sure if it's post-apocalyptic or dystopian, but I think it's set very far into the future where the world is kind of run down and people don't find joy in their everyday lives. So they escape to a virtual world called Oasis, and the creator of Oasis has passed away and he's left Easter eggs throughout the virtual world, and I think it's been many years and nobody has found any. And then the main character of this book, who I have no idea who he is, but I believe he starts to find the Easter eggs, and it's about that. I'm really excited about this. I did read Otherworld by Kirsten Miller and Jason Segel in maybe March. That was the first virtual reality sci-fi that I've read. I am excited to get to another one. I expect this to be much better, and I did enjoy Otherworld, and I know that it wasn't very good, so I'm expecting to really enjoy this one. So for the Throne of Glass read-along, we do have a group chat, and one of the people who's participating in the read-along is my friend Najwa, and she said to me that if I read her favourite book, she will start the A Court of Thorns and Roses series. And so this month I will be reading The Great Gatsby by S. Scott Fitzgerald. I have read half of this before because when I was in college I started to do English Lit as one of my subjects, but then I decided it wasn't for me because I didn't want to read that critically, and so I switched to English language. So for that I did read at least half of this, and I did really like what I read. Unfortunately, I had to give the book back when I finished the course, so I never got time to finish it. This is crazy short, less than 200 pages. When she said that if I read this, she'll read ACOTAR, I was like, well, I'm getting the really long end of the stick here because this is tiny and you have over 1,000 pages to read. So I'm considering myself a winner and I'm going to read this, so she has to read ACOTAR. Then we have my library books. I had one out already that I mentioned in my haul. And the one that if you remember, I requested one in January and it hadn't come in. It finally came in, so I picked that up. And then I also picked up a third one because I'm trash and I like to hurt myself, obviously. So the one that you've already seen is From Here to Eternity, Travelling the World to Find the Good Death by Caitlin Doughty. Caitlin Doughty is a YouTuber from the Ask a Mortician YouTube channel, and I really love her channel. If you are full of morbid curiosity like I am, then you should go check her out. She explains the intricacies of the funeral process, not only the funeral home where she works, but also the different practices across the world. She also has a series called Iconic Corpses, which talks about historical people who died and like were donated to medical science or were put on display in freak shows and things like that. So it is kind of interesting, but obviously not for everybody. This book in particular is about different funeral and celebration of life practices across the world in different cultures. I'm super interested in this. Caitlin is also really funny, which does come across in her book and her YouTube channel. So it's sort of like learning but fun, which we all love. So I'm excited to read this one. I did start it today and I am 35 pages in. As I am filming this, there are still 3 days of the month left, so this could be done before then, but in case it's not, I put it on here. Then we have the one that I actually requested in January but only just came in, and that is The Loneliest Girl in the Universe by Lauren James. I have no idea what this is about, but on Twitter I asked for sci-fi recommendations and Alex from Alex's Fiction Addiction recommended this, so I did request it. Took forever to get here, but I guess I'll read it now. Whenever anybody describes it, it reminds me of Cress in the Lunar Chronicles. I think it's a girl who lives on a satellite and she communicates with people. I've heard that it is beautiful and really gets you in the feels, so I'm excited for this. And once again, it is kind of short. It's only 290 pages and I did and have for a long time really want to read The Next Together by Lauren James. So if I like this, then I will definitely be picking that series up soon because I know they definitely have it in my library. Okay, so this is a bit of a weird one and I saw it at the library and I was like, right, yeah, I'll check it out, whatever. No idea what I'm going to think about this. And it is November 9 by Colleen Hoover. Now, I know you're all probably going to tell me that it's really bad and trash and problematic and not to read it, but the reason that I picked this up is because I don't know if Colleen Hoover is published in the UK. This is in a large print, so it's not by a traditional publisher, but I really don't know if her books are published at all. I've never ever seen one. The only reason I ever knew she existed is when I started watching BookTube last year. So I saw this and picked it up, and I know that this, I think, is one of the books that even the people who love her hate. So probably not the best Colleen Hoover book to read, but obviously everybody on BookTube really knows her and knows about her books and knows her work, whereas I literally have no idea because I've never seen a Colleen Hoover book before and never heard about her. So I'm gonna read this, see what I think. Literally no idea what to expect. Problematic content doesn't always bother me, so it could really go either way and I'm not really sure. but I'll let you know at the end of May. And the next one I'm not going to go into too much because you may have already watched my try a chapter tag, which I will put up here somewhere if you haven't. But I decided to read a tome, which was a good idea at the time, but then I realised how big my TBR is and maybe it wasn't such a good idea. But I'm going to be reading the first Mistborn book by Brandon Sanderson, which is The Final Empire. However, shortly after I filmed that video, Elliot Brooks put a video out in which order you should read Brandon Sanderson's works in, and for almost every order she said she recommended starting with Elantris, which is his first ever published book. So now I'm not sure what to do. I'm going to be reading a Brandon Sanderson book, but I don't know what to do now. So if any of you guys have read Brandon Sanderson and can recommend whether I should start with Elantris or The Final Empire, then please let me know, because I am really undecided now. Like, I had it all planned out and then Elliot threw a spanner in the works. Please let me know which one of these you think I should read, because I'm really torn. Okay, so that's it for the books that I actually own. The other books on my TBR, I have 3 new releases. The first one, as you all already know, is A Court of Frost and Starlight by Sarah J. Maas. Funny story, it is the 28th of April when I'm filming this. 10 minutes before I started filming this video, it arrived, but it's a birthday gift for me. My birthday's on the 5th, so I can't read it until then. And I'm really upset because it's 3 days before the release date and it's only 200 and something pages, and I definitely could have read it before the release, but I'm not allowed to have it. So there's that. As you all know, this is a novella in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series that is set to bridge the gap between the original trilogy and the new trilogy to come. No idea what to think of it yet, but I am excited to find out what direction the new trilogy is going to go in. From the title, I'm guessing it's something to do with the Winter Court, and we were introduced to some of those characters in the last book. But like I said, I'm not sure what's going to be happening, so I'm excited to find out. The second new release is out on the 15th of May, and that is, as you may have guessed, Warstorm by Victoria Aveyard, last book in the Red Queen series, and I told you briefly what that series was about earlier. And then the last one only comes out on the 29th of May, so I probably won't be actually reading it. But if I do have an opening in my TBR at that time, I will be starting it right at the end of May. And that is J. Kristoff's new book, Lifelike. This is a sci-fi, and I think it has a cyborg. Don't know what it's about, haven't really looked into it because all I need to know is it's J. Kristoff. So then there's a few books that I'm going to be receiving for my birthday, and that is going to be Saga Volume 5, 6, 7 and 8. I'm going to be resuming my Saga Saturdays, where every Saturday when I wake up, the first thing I do is read a volume of Saga, and I'm so excited to do that. This is a graphic novel series by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples, and it is kind of like a Romeo and Juliet in space kind of thing, where 2 people from warring planets make a baby together, and then each planet's government sort of sends mercenaries out after them. So I've really been loving this series, which was a surprise to me because I'm not a graphic novel person, and I am excited to continue with that very, very soon. And then the last 2 are books that I've ordered and haven't arrived yet. Last night I finished Rebel of the Sands by Alwyn Hamilton. I really enjoyed it, and you will find out more about that in my wrap up. But I have ordered the 2nd and 3rd books, which are called Traitor to the Throne and Hero of the Fall. I don't know which one is the 2nd and which one is the 3rd. I will be trying to continue with that series throughout May. And the Rebel of the Sands trilogy is about a girl called Amani who is from a remote town in the desert, and she's really good at shooting a gun, and she's sort of really badass for a girl, and it is this sort of time where girls are oppressed, and she sort of seizes the opportunity to go out on this adventure, and she meets a guy called Jin, and they go out and do lots of crazy things. It reminds me in tone of the Lunar Chronicles, obviously completely different settings, but it's that kind of like fun YA fantasy book, and I'm excited to carry on with that. So just as a side note, I know I'm not going to get to all of these books. May is really busy for me. It's my birthday on the 5th. I have a wedding to go to on the 19th. I'm going to see Ed Sheeran on the 26th, I believe, and then there's also like a lot of shitty things going on in my life right now that I may make a video about if it starts to impact my channel, which at the minute it is not. But essentially I have a lot on in May, less time to read than normal, and more books than ever on my TBR. So the ones I'm probably going to prioritise are the new releases, my library books and my rereads. I will definitely be reading Saga because they don't take too much time, and possibly continuing with Rebel of the Sands. To be honest, it's all going to depend on my mood at the time, especially if things do continue to get a bit shitty in my life. So I guess we'll just see. But thank you so much for watching. This is probably kind of long. Please leave in the comments if you have read any of these, or if you can help me whether I should read Elantris or Mistborn this month. Please don't forget to like this video if you liked it, and subscribe if you want to. If you head into the description box below, you can find a link to my Goodreads, Instagram and Twitter if you'd like to follow me on any of those, as well as a link to my Bookish body butter and candle website, the Instagram for that, and also a 10% off discount code. But that's it from me today. Bye!